call the meeting of the Architecture Review Board to order. We will start with continuations and work our way to new matters. As a reminder, anybody who comes to make a presentation, please speak into the microphone, introduce yourself, and let us know who you're representing, who you are and who you're representing. And as time goes on during the presentation, if you continue to speak into the mic, we'd appreciate it. It's being videotaped and recorded. So, all right. Two continuations. ARB 17-36, 555 Broadway, Mercy College.
John Malone, Ferguson Malone, Architecture, representing Mercy College. This application is for a few relatively minor window changes that are associated with an interior renovation to a portion of Verrazano Hall, which is the administrative building, but it was formerly a residence. So the area that we are making the modifications to is in what was the garage, and there was infill. There was existing. This is existing elevations. There's existing infill along this north-facing facade. And there was a exterior porch connection between this small volume and the building that was already infilled, and both of those window changes are being pursued as part of this project. So basically the impetus to replace the windows on the north-facing side of the garage is that they're single pane, not thermal windows, and the infill that they did there was not pressure treated, so the whole wall was rotting apart. So we're taking it apart, and the only change that we're really making there, I noticed, is there's board siding below the windows now, and we thought to do it above the windows. We think this is original. It's part of the garage door. It's a panelized system, so we're putting the panels below and replacing these with thermal pane. And then here we're neatening up this facade and adding 3 double hungs rather than the door and sort of hodgepodge that's there right now. So that's really the only changes that we have. Oh, the other thing is the ramp. It's being proposed for the front. There's a ramp in this location now. There's a ramp in this location now that doesn't meet handicap requirements. It's just being replaced to have the proper landing width. It's just a concrete ramp with a ramp.
So now we'll meet ADA?
Yeah, it's just a
So it's getting longer?
It's actually not getting longer. They just
the landing.
They didn't have the landing width. They only had like 18 inches at the top of the landing.
So to turn a wheelchair around at 18 inches.
It's tough to get the door open without rolling backwards.
Going back to
yeah. So that's really the only exterior changes. I think at some point they'll be back. They want to replace windows throughout the building, but it's just a larger project to try to.
If you go back to the proposed, I don't know whether it's part of the project, but I did notice I'm terrible when it comes to my eye-catching things, but down below, you're missing a, is it supposed to be missing the shutter? Or?
Oh, no. No.
I just,
maybe there's one shutter there, but it's likely there's 2. Yeah, we'll check that out. Thank you.
It's the only thing I saw that caught my eye.
Yeah, it's like hiding stuff for you, right?
Yeah, I'm good at Waldo also.
Right. Right.
Okay, any questions?
No questions.
Please. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the application? So moved. Second? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
This is
Carrying.
one of the 2.
Yeah, that's, you have the old one and the new one. John, do you want to take these?
Sure. This is the old. No, it's different.
Okay.
Sure.
It's a brief one, but. All right, moving on to new matters. We'll start with ARB 17-40, 100 Main Street, Chipley, signed.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Pope. I'm the chef owner for Mr. Koo's Kitchen. I've also prepared some packets for you since I'm new to town, so you could understand a little more about the food. My son, that's okay. Just one for you. Just up here.
Thank you.
So I'm here for the sign. It's vinyl lettering that's going on the front glass of the front door.
Will you laminate on the glass?
Correct.
I think this could be a quickie because I didn't see anything wrong with
Okay.
Oh, it's just white, right?
Yeah, just white lettering.
Okay. Because this seems to show something else, but just to be sure.
And the chicken is white as well?
Chicken is white,
Everything
correct.
is white.
Yeah.
Is there a plan to hang any other sign?
That was what I was going to ask you guys, if you'd be opposed if I put the font on the two other glass windows, same white lettering. I just wasn't so familiar with the whole process, so at the time I filed this application, I'd only put through the logo itself.
Well, I probably would have to see it to approve it.
Sure.
If you want, I can ask you to withdraw this application so the next time we meet, you won't have to go through the whole thing over again.
Right.
Just bring in or send in the new version of what it is you want to do. That's better for you. I think
Okay.
we're meeting again in 3 weeks.
Okay. I mean, I'm trying to open shortly, so I'd like to, I guess, just go with this, and
All right. Okay.
if there's any changes, I'd have to go through the process over again, or?
Unfortunately.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody have any issues, questions with what's been proposed?
No.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Do you want these back?
Yeah, you guys can keep them or pop them.
Okay, next, under new matters is 17-41, 75 West Clinton Avenue, Lang, windows.
This is a John Malone, Ferguson Malone Architecture representing the Langs. This is a small modification to an existing, I don't know, what is this? Georgian with a gigantic columns. The changes are to support a master bedroom and master suite upgrade, and they affect the west-facing and south-facing facades. So the existing west-facing facade has a window and a door accessing a balcony above a sunroom, and the existing south-facing facade has a single window on this side of the chimney. So the proposed interior renovation is taking the existing window that was in this location and reinstalling it on the rear facade to make sure that these two windows match. And then on the west-facing facade, there's a double door centered on the facade and two new windows. That's really the limit of the change. The windows are Marvin. They're a clad unit. The rest of the windows in the building are painted, but the clad color that we've chosen matches the trim color. That was just a request of the client to do those in clad.
Questions? Questions? Any questions? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the application?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
I guess the interest in time, John, I'm gonna skip the next one and go to the Presbyterian Church.
Okay.
Knock that out. I'm actually making the presentation, I have to recuse myself on that, so,
Okay.
make it easier. Okay, next application would be ARB 17-43. We're going to skip ARB 17-42 and come back to it. Presbyterian Church, 21 North Broadway, mechanical.
Yes, good evening. It's Earl Ferguson with Ferguson Malone Architecture, representing the Presbyterian Church on Broadway. I think it's number 21, North Broadway. And the application this evening is for the installation of ventilation equipment in order to cool the main sanctuary and a chapel area on the interior of the church. And we've been mindful about the historic significance of the church. It was designed by James Renwick Jr., same architect who designed St. Patrick's Cathedral. All of the equipment, except some of the ductwork, would be located on the exterior. Some small portion of ductwork would occupy an existing attic space on the inside of the church. Otherwise, the historic integrity of the inside of the church would not be disturbed. We're being joined by Bill Hone, who is representing the church leadership here tonight, and Michael Ramburn, who is the mechanical engineer consultant for the church. We've offered some photographs of the church, of the significant views of the church, including a roof plan. And you can see on the roof plan, this is on the first sheet, you can see on the roof plan that there is an addition that has been put on the back of the church, on the north elevation of the church, nearest the road, the Matheson Park Drive that runs down between the church and a neighboring property. That's a one-story addition that I think that was built in the 50s or 60s.
I think 50s.
Concrete block, mid-50s, for the purpose of creating a boiler room as well as a kitchen on the back of the church. There are two pieces of ventilation equipment that would be mounted on the roof of what is now the boiler room. And there would be a ventilation stack for a new boiler that would also penetrate that roof. There's an existing ventilation stack kind of hung on the back of that concrete block building. The elevations that we've offered, we didn't bother redrawing the church exactly every elevation. We were able to find in the archives some very early drawings of the church. It was not the original drawings of the church, but they were drawings really that were intended to manage the addition that had been put on the back of the church in the 50s. So we did cartoons of the church, and with the cartoons, and they are in proportion because they're traced over the original the drawings that I just spoke of. And a combination of these line drawings and the photographs should suffice for the review tonight, I think. So we have a roof plan. This is the existing roof plan and elevations. The roof that we're talking about where the equipment would be mounted is in this location on the north side of the church.
And that's the current flue.
And this is a current chimney. Yes, there was I believe there was an earlier flue when it was coal-fired, Bill. I'm not sure, but that
I'm
chimney,
not sure. It may have used the chimney.
it may have used the chimney, yes. But the equipment that's being replaced now it doesn't use that chimney. It uses the one that's hung on the back of the building. Am I incorrect
both.
about that? They use both.
There's two boilers in that space. One, the smaller boiler uses the smaller stack that's on the side of the boiler room.
I'm going to let him cover some details with you in a minute.
Okay.
So these elevations would not be disturbed. Now, this is the proposed roof plan and elevations. Here's the roof of the boiler room and kitchen addition. This is an existing chimney, the brick chimney that's there now. Two pieces of equipment would be located in this portion of that roof. There will be some horizontal ductwork and some vertical ductwork that would come up the back of this wing of the church and then across the existing roof. Those two ducts would penetrate into the church where there are existing ventilation grills already in place there. So any compromise of the historic fenestration in that area has already been done some years ago. This is the elevation from Broadway, and because of the way the grade, I don't know if you were able to get up there today or any time this week to look at it, but from the Broadway view, because of the way the terrain falls down, the topography falls from the Broadway parking lot area, driveway area, to the addition, the 1950s concrete addition. It is not as visible because of that grade. But you will see a new 20-inch diameter boiler flue pipe in this location in plan. And the equipment where it's located in this application, if there were no trees and no buffer here, you might see a peak of those two pieces of equipment.
Earl, is there a physical reason why that can't be pushed back?
Pushed closer to the church, you mean? Yeah.
If you look at that drawing there, I mean, it looks like they're obviously not on the same
Yeah,
plane.
right here. I think, I'm going to let Michael speak to that. I have a feeling it's that one blower can't really interfere with the functioning of the other blowers, so they have to be staggered away. That doesn't mean that we can't make adjustments at all. But there is adequate buffering in this location. There are some abrevieties in there currently, and at one time I'm sure those abrevieties were much lower. You know how they kind of die off on the back, on the undersides. There could be additional evergreen buffering put in the same location of where those are. This is the north elevation, and it describes how the two twin ducts would run up and then across the roof. I think isn't that an asphalt roof? It's not the original slate roof, it's an asphalt roof. And we've called out specifications for all of this to be reversible and to do it in a way that when it's removed, it wouldn't compromise the historic integrity of the building. The west elevation is here, but you can't really see. This is just for mechanical purposes and to illustrate to the board, the whole story about the placement of the equipment. You can't really see the church or the addition very well at all, really, from the aqueduct or from the west side. you, Michael. Okay, this is the Broadway view. It's very heavily kind of forested back in there, but this is the line of evergreens that had been placed there some years ago, where, and even though the view of the roof area where the equipment will be is not very visible, even with no undergrowth here, such buffering could be added to the job if the board should suggest so. And the south elevation, you can't see anything at all, even if you removed these trees and if it were a winter view. That one-story addition on the back, on the north side of the church, is not visible from the south. This is a view from the neighbor's property, the one that is just north of the drive. And this is another one. No, I'm sorry, this is the one from the drive, from the road, looking at the church in that area where the boiler room is. You can make that out through the trees there. And then this is the one from the neighbor's property across the way. Or vice versa. This is from the road, this is from the neighbor's property. Sorry. There are additional photographs here that we could offer. This is the view of the church from the west elevation. There's an addition there of a nursery school. It's been there for some years now.
At least 25 that I know of. My kids are there.
Past those, yeah. Both my daughters went there.
And they got most kids there.
And this, if you pass that down, that's a view from the aqueduct. In your package, we had also submitted some equipment cuts showing the what the equipment looks like should you be able to see the equipment. And if the board pleases, at this point, I'd like to introduce Michael Romberg, who is the mechanical engineer, and he can cover some of the details and the reasoning that the mechanicals have been approached this way.
If I can just allow Bill to just say a couple
Yes,
words.
yes, please.
Just a couple of words.
My name is Bill Hone. I'm chairman of the Capital Projects Committee under which we're doing this work. Reverend David Harkness would have preferred to be here tonight, but he's recovering from, excuse me, he's recovering from a stroke that he had a couple of weeks ago. We have, as Earl pointed out, already done a ventilation fan up in what he called the attic. We're just moving it. Reason, 1990, we purchased a pipe organ from Kleisorgelbau in Germany. And when we turned on the fan, the organist and the organ company went, no, vibration. So we're having to move it out, put it on springs or whatever, so that we don't screw up the fine organ that now resides in the church. The location, the north side is really the back of the church. There is a view from Broadway to the front of the church, but the primary view of that church is from the southeast, coming up Broadway where we have the green, and from there, from that southeasterly direction, one can see the church building and the addition of the school building, can see it all. The place that you can't see and nobody sees really is the north side. So that's where we propose to go. I think if you asked people attending the church on Sunday morning what's on the north side, very few would know. They don't even know there's a boiler room out there, let alone what it looks like. So we're trying to put it in the most inconspicuous spot, but achieve the vibration reduction that Michael can talk about when you get into real stuff. But that's the general scheme that we're proposing. And now I'll turn it over to Michael.
My name is Michael Rambert. I'm representing Rambert and JM Consulting Engineers, who are the design engineers on this job. I think your question came up of why we put the fans where we put them. We wanted to separate out because of the noise level of the existing fans. They probably, whoever chose those fans probably chose them the worst type of fan, which is an axial type fan, which has a prop. It's like a prop fan, but they put it in a location up in the attic space that causes a lot of vibration. And during services, you cannot turn those fans on because of the noise, and you would not be able to use the organ. So we approached the design in a way that we wanted to separate the noise-generating equipment, which is fans, equipment, any sort of equipment that would create a vibration in the space, and said, well, how do we remove that from the space? So hence, we went to the back of the building where the fans are located. We chose that location because the boiler room is close to that location also, so there's mechanical equipment back in that space. We also we did not want to penetrate into the church and run ductwork inside the church because the church has a fairly high ceiling that's quite exposed. There's no place to hide ductwork inside the church. So we went up the back side of the church and entered through into the attic space in a location where existing louvers are, where the existing fans are. So the windows that are being taken up by those existing fans are now being occupied by the ductwork into the attic space. The intent of the design is really to create negative pressure and ventilation inside the space. We are bringing air through the open windows. We're not having any sort of mechanical systems inside the church.
It's not air conditioning.
It's not well, it's ventilation. It's not air conditioning, right? So the original thought was like, oh, we can air condition the church, but the reality is the church service itself on a Sunday, the usage of that space is from 9 to 12. So two things that are against the idea of air conditioning is that the capacity, the volume of the church is large, and the amount of money to be spent to ventilate that church would be astronomical for about 3 hours of services on Sunday. So we went with the ventilation route, where we would use the existing open windows that are operable. We calculated the amount of CFMs that could come through those windows, and then we were able to draw air through the building into the attic space, which has existing louvers on it already. We're adding one additional louver on the front side and one on the parlor area, where we're using that attic space as a plenum. And we're just drawing air through the church. We calculated it based on 4 air changes per hour, so there's a constant movement of air through the church. With the idea that you can separate...
Sorry, you're drawing air, so the air is just coming from the church itself.
Right, the air, essentially the air is coming through the fenestration.
Infiltration. Just plain old infiltration.
Right, yeah, by
You're
intent.
not bringing it through these 2 ducts, right? It's just-
No, we're bringing, it's by intent. So we create negative pressure in the space, so the open windows that are in the church during the summertime, because all of the windows, 23 openings in there are 23 operable windows in the church. So there's
At the clear story level? That's the ones where the arched windows that are in the...
Both levels.
Yeah, at both levels. So there's one level of windows at the seating area, and then there's another level of windows at the high end of the church. So there's a total of 23 windows. So we're able to draw air through those windows and move air through the church through the ventilation fans. The front side in the sanctuary area has 2 existing louver openings. The existing parlor area, which is the room behind the sanctuary of the church, has 1 existing louver opening. We're adding 1 to that. and we're enlarging this louver space, which is not visible based on the way that the wall is angled is not visible from the sanctuary. So we're enlarging that in order to lower the velocity of air that goes through those louvers. Our goal here is not just to ventilate, but to reduce the introduction of noise into the space or vibration. Hence, the fans are on the roof on the outside. They're on spring rails, so we're able to.
What's the material of the roof?
Right now it's a rubber roof. It's a rubber roof, EPDM roof. So there's a roof warranty, so we're going to be working with the roofing contractor in order to maintain that warranty. And also, we noted the velocities going through the louvers. We wanted to make sure that the velocities were not high, so that way we can have a slow moving air through the louvers in order to mitigate any sort of whistling or air noise that you would normally hear. All the ductwork from the ductwork in the attic all the way to the fan. The fans are acoustically lined, so that way we can reduce any sort of noise vibration that will be coming back. Typically, the noise will follow the direction of the air.
Just tell me why again there's 2 fans?
Because initially there were 3, because we're going to use 2 fans to ventilate the sanctuary and then 1 to ventilate the parlor. Based on our calculations, we said, oh, well, we can reduce it to 2 fans. We wanted to make sure we were not exceeding the budgets of the job. So we created we have 2 fans. Each of them are going to be individually controlled. Each are equally sized, but we calculated the total volume of the space inside the parlor and the sanctuary in order to create that air change.
Well, why 2 fans?
Because 1 fan would be 13,000 CFM, so the actual elevation, the physical size of the fan would be much larger than what 2 fans would be. So,
Sorry, did you have, okay. You could have had, just as a mental exercise, a large duct that goes up and then splits somewhere else.
but the size of the fan would remain the same.
Yeah, the size of the fan.
Would be bigger. 13,000 CFM
Yeah.
would be bigger. As well as you create a larger point
I'm
load.
sorry, I got caught up at the beginning of this.
Okay.
This is an exhaust fan.
Yes, these are exhausters. They're not supply fans.
They're exhaust.
Right, exhaust air. So by doing that, what we do is create just negative pressure inside the space. We draw air out of the
Did the
space.
church look at putting I forget what they're called, it's a rooftop fan that pulls the air out instead of putting it onto the roof? Do you know what I'm talking about? One of those, the
Like in
dome?
a cupola?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's no existing cupola in the sanctuary area. There is an existing steeple that goes up to on the front
No,
corner
I
of the
meant
church.
something that was mounted to the roof and it draws
Yeah.
a draw fan.
That's what they have right now. That's what they have inside,
Those-
not in the
No,
roof,
no, I'm saying on the outside.
on the arch, on the
Yeah.
roof
Yeah.
slopes.
Yeah.
No, but we wouldn't want to do that anyway. Because essentially, when you look from the inside of the roof, that is the roof. That is the bottom inside of the
What's
roof.
the roof inside? I just don't remember.
Right now, you have slate on the roof.
No, I
On the
know
exterior.
It's exterior. What's on the inside?
It's wood.
It's beans.
It's beams and it's exposed.
Yeah.
So you're basically having a fan motor running right there inside the sanctuary.
Beautiful truss.
Yeah, so we would,
Beans and archives.
our goal is to
I
meet
guess
this.
part of my trouble is when I look at this, it seems convoluted, that in some way you might have put a deck, a free deck out on the roof of the eave, because you're just creating this, what color is the ducts?
It would be painted gray to match the color of the building. Right now, we have it as just duct sealed, but we can paint it gray.
Or had it come down here directly adjacent to the chimney. It just, when I look at it here, and I know this is the back, I got that, it just seems convoluted when I see a streak right here that it could go up, two windows, you're going through 2 windows.
But we're on the other side of the chimney.
Yeah, I know where they're going through, I'm just
They're
saying-
already compromised, those windows.
That
They're
you
where
could
the
relocate
ventilation
the
plan
windows?
is.
It just seems you're creating
Not
this.
without taking out this.
Yeah.
We also wanted to follow the line of the
Already out on
roof.
the other one?
Yeah, they're already out.
The mullion is out too, the post?
The 2 windows have been joined some years ago.
Yeah. That's, we wanted to limit the
I know you
in
all love
space.
ducks and everything, it's just like this is a huge
Yeah.
carbuncle on the side of this beautiful
Yeah.
church.
But well, I mean, it's-
Sorry, and then the second thing is, again, I've had bad experience with these things sitting on the roof. I would suggest that if it's just an exhaust fan, that there be some sort of covering on it. Either a low trellis or something that covers it up.
What do you mean, like an enclosure?
Yeah, just an open enclosure. And lastly, I'm sure you've checked the sound for your neighbors.
That's what I was concerned about.
Maybe 70.
The 70 dBA. Your typical classroom sound band is around 40, 50,
not the
54.
other way, to the neighbor.
We didn't measure the drop-off. It starts out at 70 dBA.
70 dBA.
90, right? I thought it was 90.
Well, do you remember, John, is it 80 or something like that? Do you not?
Well, the question is how to measure it and where to measure it. So
Right, sound is,
it's a very difficult thing to measure. 70 there,
Right.
probably at the property line.
I'm sure they have a formula for the follow-up.
Yeah.
well, what you can do, I mean, sound is a subjective number depending on distance, and there's a difference between sound power and pressure.
It's really clear.
Yeah.
If the code's, I'm just dealing with it on another site. And
Yeah.
it's-
I'm sure it's above 70.
Yeah, I think it is around 80 or 90.
Yeah.
So,
that's an-
Right now, your starting point is
You
70.
know, a leaf blower is 65 at this point.
Right. And we actually sized the fan slightly larger in order to reduce the sound levels, because we wanted to have a lower RPM fan as
Yeah.
opposed to a higher RPM fan, in
It's-
order to just kind of slow that air down.
I looked at this spec, are they variable speed?
They are not variable speed. They are individually controlled, so you can have 6,500 or 13,000.
Not leaving the church much choice if they find that there still is noise there.
They're belt-driven fans, so you can vary the speed by adjusting the pulleys. So, because it's not,
But somebody can't turn a knob and say faster, slower.
typically that's on a direct drive fan.
Yeah, I know you
Yeah,
can't. That's
so
what I asked.
on a belt drive fan, it's that would be hard to do.
But at the same time, in order to maintain a negative in the building,
Mhm.
you have to open up all those windows? Everyone has to be opened up?
Well, I mean, if you open up less than all of the windows, your velocities of air going through the building, you'd still have negative pressure, you would actually have more negative pressure. Right, so the less windows you open, the more negative pressure you have in the space, and then you increase the velocity of air coming through those windows. So the sequence of operation is that and the churches, we asked those questions in the very beginning, well, how do you do, because we did a design study from before we did the design. So we asked, well, how do you typically operate the church on a Sunday morning? They said, well, we'll come in, we'll open up all the windows, and then we'll run the fans that they have that are the axial propeller fans right now. We'll run it before service starts. But once we have to get started, we have to turn those fans off. But then you have this buildup of air, and no air doesn't really move through the church.
So this is just removing the heat that's in the church.
Right, you're creating movement of air.
So we're only talking about running them in the summer months during the
Yes.
services period.
Right, so you're talking, what, service is 10:30?
Service is 10:30 with coffee.
Right.
Afterwards in the parlor, everybody's out of there before noon.
Right, your usage is from 10 to 12 on Sunday mornings. That would be pretty much it. Yeah. And only in the summer, and only on very warm days. Even on your 80-degree days, your typical building temperature in the evening will drop down to 65, 68 degrees, maybe 70. Even on those mornings, you really don't need that much that heat removal from the space.
I know you guys drew this 10 times till tomorrow. It just seems convoluted. Can you make it, can you push it any further, any closer to the church? I'm talking about just
Yeah.
literally.
Oh, maybe I should address that.
Well, we have an ice issue, that's why we kind of pulled it away from that.
Michael. Michael hasn't seen it firsthand, but we have had big icicles that form above and drop down, and we've actually put plywood on the roof to stop penetration of the roof. So we asked Michael to move the fans out a bit away from the walls so that no, 6-foot icicle is going to come smash the fans.
Are they also staggered because of the intakes and the exhausts?
Yeah, we didn't want one fan blowing on the other fans. We staggered them, and we also wanted to create two separate point loads on the building. Right? We don't want to have the two fans right close to each other, weight loads. So we wanted to separate that out a little bit. Fans are not that heavy, but they're not, you don't want to put them all in one spot either.
Any thoughts of using the chimney or taking the chimney down, or is it still being used? It is still being used.
No.
I think it's going to be decommissioned, isn't it, with the
Right.
new equipment?
Well, there's two parts of this project. One is the ventilation part of the project, and the other one is the boiler. The initial presentation was regarding the boiler stack and the chimney, so we would be decommissioning the existing chimney that goes up high above the existing roof, and just installing a new chimney in the boiler room itself, the boiler room roof.
I'm sorry, but I really have to strongly encourage some sort of, my opinion, is that all of this be somehow shielded from anybody, from seeing the equipment and the flip with a low trellis it could be, or some sort of low enclosure.
Okay.
Some kind of a buffer,
Yeah.
a barrier,
Something.
fence or
Yeah.
something.
On the fans and ventilation, that would work. With regard to the boiler flue, though, it has to be 3 feet above the highest vertical point within 10 feet. So if we,
That's why you're pushing it
yes, if we put it,
north.
yes, if we put it in like an enclosure or a barrier,
Very good architect right here.
then we have 3 feet above
He
that.
can figure that one out.
We could, I mean, you would
A
have
few
to.
chimneys in this
Right,
day.
right. So, I mean, but we would still have to be 3 feet above the highest vertical point.
Discussion, I'm just like looking at this, even though it's, tucked behind. I'm troubled by the ductwork. I think you need to spell out and show us the colors that are there and the color of this duct, because I hate to see, even if it was zinc coated, I hate to see it sort of big shiny thing on the side of the building, which even on a bad day, you're gonna pick up. It's such a spectacular church, and I hate to see, and I know you do too. And I know you do too, feel the same way about it.
We could coat the duct to match the existing facade.
But you'd also have to put something over them, because you're gonna see 2 ducts. Is there something
Yeah, that's what I was indicating, is it was.
You want some kind of screening, Ken, to
No,
block
the
those.
ducks are gonna be the ducks. There's not much, yeah.
Yeah.
Parapet, yeah.
The way the ducts travel up the side of the building and across the roof, it would concerned about drainage and,
Yeah.
mounting it in a way where it won't damage the roof of the
I did
church.
that. I assume you're gonna follow whatever guidelines for a landmark.
Yes, we have much of that already noted on the drawings, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, if we wanted to, and the idea of combining the ducts, we can also make the ducts separate but combined. We can put them right next to each other. We can have one duct coming down next to the other.
I thought that's what Ken was going. In fact, I think it's just window dressing.
Right,
You just see
yeah.
duct, X amount of width of
Right.
ductwork going up, whether it's got a seam or not.
Right.
It is what it is.
Yeah. And I know we were thinking, and we're looking specifically at that area, but when we look at the street, from the street views, you're not going to see most of this.
Is the speed of the fan, I never remember this relationship, fixed due to the size of the aperture of through the windows? The speed that you're moving, you have to move a certain amount of air out, right? That's in a certain amount of time. So if you took another window, and I'm not there yet, but if you took another window, would the ducts be smaller?
No,
No.
no. The velocity of the duct, the size of the duct is determined by the volume of air and the velocity of that duct coming, the velocity of the air coming through that duct. So if we took another window, then you're essentially making the duct larger, and when you slow down the velocity.
At the manifold, right? You can slow down the fan. If you have more aperture, you can slow down the fan. That's what you're just saying.
No,
Yeah?
no. If you, the velocity of air going through the duct would be slower the larger and larger the duct gets. So, but the reality is at some point it becomes where your fan stalls out, because your fan, when you select a fan, the fan is based on 2 things. One is static pressure, which is the resistance against the airflow.
Yeah.
and that determines the motor horsepower that you have. So by reducing and creating lower and lower velocities, two things happen. One is you go backwards on the fan curve because you're reducing your static pressure, but also at some point you're not drawing any air through the church because you need some velocity, you need some pull against that air that's inside the church. Right, so we have to ride that fan curve in a way that it's at a certain point where we can't get too high, create too much static pressure or resistance to airflow, but we also can't get too low where there's no resistance at all because your motor horsepowers are all determined by the amount of static pressure that you have in the ductwork. So that's what determines it. And plus, we really do want 4 air changes per hour. We want to make sure that air is turned over every 15 minutes, just to drive comfort inside the church.
I guess going forward, we need some assurance of proper shielding from, I guess, both the street and the side street for the fans themselves.
Okay.
So I don't know how tall these fans are, but probably in the neighborhood, probably need about a 5 foot high.
They're like 5 feet high.
They're 5 feet high.
Yeah, more like,
You know, they're down anywhere from 10 inches to 12 inches below a parapet wall that surrounds that addition.
Does the 5 feet include the springs or the rail?
Right, the springs are only 3 inches, so that includes that. I'm going to say 5 feet. The dimensions of the fans are on the cuts.
Yep.
I'm just talking
57
about,
inches
yeah,
is what it
so-
said, yeah.
plus the 3 inches.
I have a question. How are the ducts, the vertical ducts, going to be attached to the wall for stability? Are they going to be mounted or are they
Yeah, they're going to be mounted. They're going to be mounted with brackets into the church.
And is that going to compromise the existing walls, or is it going to be any vibration, or with the wind or the weather, would that compromise the walls of the church?
Well, just two things on that particular scenario. Right now, we have a gap that's behind the duct. The ducts are going to be close to the wall, but there'll still be air will be allowed to flow through on the back side, so air will be able to go on both sides. But we won't have any vibration from wind. They'll be secured to the wall. Our goal is not to have any movement of that duct at all.
Is it going to be attached to the roof as well?
Correct.
And you said that roof is fairly new.
The roof is 5 years. Arthur
You
Vincent.
said you're concerned with the warranty, so.
Right, well, we're working with the roofing contractor to put he has a warranty on the roof, so we're going to work with him to make sure his warranty gets maintained, and we're going to provide pitch pocket details for him to be able to work with.
Did this have to go through planning or no?
No.
Planning board. I mean, normally we wouldn't ask a lot of these mechanical, technical questions, but unfortunately, we know that, you know, this is your one and only stop. Ken, where do you want to go from here?
Enclosure and then the color of the ducts, you're gonna have to, I think we're gonna have to see it, but
Okay.
I can leave it to Earl on that case.
Okay.
Just to be clear, I mean, you want the enclosures around the fan, right? Not around the chimney. So as long as we're 10 feet away from that chimney, we're okay with that.
I think that's fine.
That's okay? Okay.
It's more visual than anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hear you.
All right.
Where you move it, it looks like you have to move it 3 feet and that's it. And an enclosure, yeah. Well, if you look at the elevations, but still, it's
Yeah.
from the back.
I don't think it would be much movement. It would be fine.
But I would definitely put an enclosure around it.
Now, that's the west view that you don't really see.
Yeah, you don't-
An enclosure would be, just so that we understand each other, just a screen enclosure, correct? Not an enclosure,
Not a roof.
just a screen.
Unless you want to try and protect it from the icicles, which we do that.
Like a roof.
We'll put a cage over these.
Yeah, so-
That's the Broadway view.
Yeah. Okay. That was it.
All right. Any other
I don't
questions?
think it's that visible. I'm not uncomfortable with that.
All right.
Next meeting?
Well, I mean, do you want to make an amendment to the drawing now as far as the color of the duct and the enclosure? Or do you want to?
I'd say that the color will closely match the existing stonework in the roof, and the enclosure will be to 48 inches above parapet. private fee,
Yeah.
and we could say, yeah, that's what we'll do.
It is a time-sensitive project because of Con Edison, right? So we have a case file open with Con Edison for the boiler renovation portion of the project. So if there's a way that we can amend the drawings as is and add some notes.
What I'm gonna do is make the notes on the drawings.
Right.
And then that louver color to match the existing facade.
That's fine.
That's painted concrete
Yeah.
block right now.
The yellow, right?
What'd you say, Ken, was on this one?
The louver color, that's all.
Okay. I will make,
Mr. Chairman, could you read that back to
Sure.
us?
the amendments will be, the screening will be 48 inches above the parapet. Color to match existing on the ductwork. And louver color to match as well.
Thank you.
One question.
Does the board have any thoughts on the screening, like color or?
To match the color of the concrete block, the walls. It's pretty close. So
Match the color of the
Yes,
building,
so-
stone color.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve as amended? So moved. Second? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
John, we don't want to give you a hernia, but.
John.
Okay, now, at this point, I am going to recuse myself because I am to make the presentation for ARB 17-42, so Ken will take over. Is this the 120? 120. Next item on the agenda, where is it? ARB 17-42, Irvington Gardens, 120 Broadway. This is the first time for us? Yes.
Okay.
And you are?
For the record, Rocco Rasulo, President of the Board of Directors, 120 North Broadway Tenants Corp., the applicant. What I'll show you on the drawing here is the main entry into 120 comes right up the driveway here. And what's happening, we're right now going through an entire repaving of the property. However, there are two walls as you come up the driveway. This is a garbage area here. There's a retaining wall here and a long retaining wall here, and then it just turns back over here. What you have in your packet is us asking to replace this wall.
You need this to put up there?
Well, I will eventually put it up.
Okay.
Is to replace this wall in its same form and increase the length of this wall slightly, and it will make a turn to the south at this point, and I'll put the other drawing up at this point so you guys can see that. Okay, so the garbage area will be over here. This is the one retaining wall. This starts out at about 5 feet and goes up to about 10 feet. At this point, this entire wall is staying in place. It's not going to be touched. What we're doing here is, as you can see, this is the piece that's there now. What we're going to do is add a little bit to it, approximately 7.5 feet, and then turn this way. There's a tremendous amount of water that comes down from the Unification Church property. And what happens is it comes in here and just goes into our parking lot. So what we want to do is try to push that down the walkways that are down here to get rid of it, and it'll go into another storm drain. That's really the only reason for doing this. As I said, this part of the walls is staying as is. The reason we had to come in front of the ARB is the fact that we're changing this from a cement block wall to a unilock wall. All right. There's a piece in your color chart. If you look at the radius, not the radius face colors, the standard face colors, the willow color, the gray, that's the color that it will be. This one in the corner. And that's a flat face. And so this entire wall will be done with the unilock blocks. Once again, this entire wall is going to stay as is, and this will also be unilock. What we'll do, because every wall here now is white, what we're going to do is change this back wall. We're going to paint that back wall to match the color of the willow. So looks like it's supposed to be. It's painted white now. It's just a straight cement block wall. So that was it. I mean, that's the extent of it.
Is that are both of those plans in the packet, or just this one?
This is actually.
Can you add that to this? Because it was, I couldn't figure out, because I got that. I didn't know where it was on the property.
Okay, I can. This is an extra copy I have in my boardroom. I keep one of those copies, but I'll add it to it. Sure.
Okay. And then on the packet, it didn't have the willow circle if you circle that.
I know that. Yep.
Okay.
That's going to be part of the packet that's going to be submitted.
So, any comments, any questions?
I do have a question. Rick, you said on the right side there that you have a problem with water and you're trying to avert the water onto the walkways. Are you concerned about it icing?
Well, it's not really, I mean, the walkway is way down here.
Oh,
What happens is it comes out here.
I see it on here,
saw
so I
this,
wasn't
yeah, on
sure
the
where you
site
meant.
plan, just to show where you're sending it to.
What's happening is this is an asphalt drive. What's happening is it's coming here and going that way. So all this water from this entire area is coming down to this one drain, actually down in here. What we want to do is push it out a little bit so it gets caught by this drain. There's a storm drain here. So what we want to do is try to catch most of the water that's coming down this way. There's a tremendous amount of water that comes straight down, and there's other draining that's along the way here, but most of the water we find, and also we're thinking of putting back a compost yard here, so we don't want the water to be necessarily running underneath that and pushing all the sediment down below there. So, anybody else?
So I would say just to modify the drawing, just bubble that where it's located there.
Bubble
on that plan, because
on this plan or
no, on that plan, on the site plan. Just indicate that that's the area.
Oh, my pen.
And I don't have any comments.
No, I think I'm good.
No.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve?
Do.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I was on.
Thank you.
Good job, Ken.
I think you have to make the motion to close.
I will, once I.
No need to be nervous, sir. You've seen this before. It's all
All right.
I just actually.
Here, I did my circle already.
Oh, I did too.
Okay, anything else that has to come before us?
Do you want
At this
the
moment,
packages?
just, no.
I have a question. Did the walkway come before us?
Which one?
The aqueduct? Did the aqueduct, the revised plans for that? It did
Who is
not.
it for?
It's for the
The
aqueduct.
village.
Uh-huh.
Village doesn't have to come before us.
It got engineering review, and then it got.
I know that, it had that.
It had to have state,
It had the state review,
and it had the.
Parks
Aqueduct
review.
Parks review, and it had the school district
but
review.
it didn't come to us.
And why wouldn't it? I agree, because I'm already
Because
looking,
that's-
I'm looking at the front of it and wondering whether
I mean, I know there's,
It's gonna
it's
be
gonna
a
look right.
Because that's
walkway.
municipal
You're
law.
extending the walkway. No,
Municipal law is that nothing the village does as an action on its own accord needs to be reviewed.
And it's on school property as well, so they don't have to come before.
School and park property.
Right.
The thing is, though, that the plans were put forward in public sessions.
Yeah, there were public sessions, but not the final version. I think we never saw the final version in public.
I know about that one.
I know that one, because we were on the committee, and then we were like, got a notification, the committee that sort of was working on the beautification of Main Street.
I think it's a really good point. I mean, it is the historic, it's part of the contributing, at least, right, if it's not.
While we're on that subject, I don't know how the stone walls could be going up at 30 South Broadway without us approving. We haven't approved that entire project. We have not blessed the entire
No, they haven't.
34 South Broadway
They
project.
haven't been back in a long time.
They're doing those concrete retaining walls.
I would say you'd have to talk to the building department to find out what they're doing, because obviously they got approval from the planning board.
Yeah,
Yes, but they never came to us to get our final blessing.
Then I don't know, unless they're making the argument that it's in-kind materials and,
But it wasn't. I mean, that
They
was.
weren't
They're
there.
regrading, yeah.
That wasn't there.
sorry, that's,
They're regrading.
That's a whole new wall.
That's a new wall.
First of
They're
all, that
regrading.
driveway used to go this way, now it's going.
no, I know that, but I'm saying the materials were the same, it was granite block material.
No.
No?
There were no walls there.
I
There
understand
were
No.
stanchions, but that was.
Stanchions, but they were just echoing
We're
that.
not talking about the wall on Broadway, we're talking about the walls going in the property.
Well, no, I'm talking about the actual
Yeah.
driveway walls, because that's the only thing they've done as far as I can see. But at the same time, that project, I don't know how it's moving forward without us giving,
I don't know either, but I would say talk to Ed, because I know that walls have gone up in the past, or pieces of walls
Right,
have
when you're
gone up
replacing in kind.
with
no, you're talking about probably up in,
a shared driveway is, as an example, where the work had to be stopped because they were not approved.
Right.
So it's happened in the past.
And he was out there with,
Who, Ed?
not Ed,
Bernardo?
Denardo.
Oh, well, I think the thing is to really find out, because, there must be, I can't believe he's moving forward with doing work that would need to be approved.
Okay. Before you leave, can I go just sign this?
So Rick, you're gonna,
Oh, yeah.
Loud, just sign that.
you're gonna talk to Ed about it?
Yeah. I was just waiting until finally I saw them doing the walls. I'm saying, that shouldn't be going on.
Yeah, we haven't seen it in a long time. We were sort of waiting and wondering what was going on, because it was so long ago.
And they were well aware of the fact they hadn't come before us yet.
Yeah.
Mr. Denardo.
For any of the buildings.
To go forward, as far as I was concerned. Because like I said, the last we saw them, he made some suggestions, and he said, you'll see that on the final
That's
vote.
it. It was more, it was sort of sort of preliminary discussions.
They were
There
informal.
wasn't a formality to it at that point.
Right. What else we did? I haven't seen it. No, it's, that's fine. And,
I mean, the most that would happen was they would have to stop until they came forward to him.
And there's a lot that has to be reviewed on that, from our standpoint.
Right, but you could break it up and get the wall, the entry.
I don't care how they do it, that's right.
It's not for 3 weeks. 3 weeks and a half. A lot of us are away in 3 weeks.
Well, no, yes, actually, I did get an email back from Deb. She will be here, so it'll be Deb,
You have enough people,
Chloe, and I,
okay.
yeah. Otherwise, August 14th is going to be scrapped. Okay. We have a motion to adjourn. So, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.